couple of just points to review. Civil War is over. We're now trying to get back the North and South to come back together. Lincoln is president. He has some ideas, right? If we look at his plan.
He's been elected to a second term.
He has a plan. He wants to make it easy for the South to kind of rejoin.
I think the word we used was lenient.
Very lenient. Maybe like the "Why Can't We Be Friends" plan,
yes.
if they know that song, which they don't.
And again, if you're a Southerner, it's like, hey, I like this idea. Because
Absolutely.
if I swear loyalty to the Union, my neck will be safe.
Right. And, with an amnesty, you're forgiven for certain things that you did wrong. That's a winner. So far, so good.
Yep.
Then, we know that he gets assassinated. And then I start with this picture because, a lot of things that people don't remember or know about Lincoln is that the guy loved comedy. People go, wait a minute, he lost a child. You're the president when millions are getting killed. How could you, have a sense of humor?
And it was a great sense of humor.
It was. He even had a sense of humor about his wife because his wife, was later found to be mentally unstable. He even had like a joke about that because a lot of his close aides wouldn't want to be around because of her. And I'm trying to remember the quote, but he said to one guy who wanted to anxiously get the heck out of the situation, he's like, I know why you want to leave, it's because of her, but if you could just stay here for 10 more minutes, that would be great because I have to deal with her for the rest of my life.
I think it was Stanton, the Secretary of War.
It was Stanton. Yeah. And unfortunately, his life is what we're going to talk about because it was cut way too short, especially when we're looking in terms of Reconstruction.
And even just talking about Lincoln as a human being.
Right.
Because it's he's on that pedestal. It's Washington, Lincoln.
Exactly.
When you talk about great American presidents, it's dude, he's on our money. He's got this massive monument or memorial in Washington D.C. It's cities, towns named after him. But to humanize him,
yes.
The very reason why he even grows his beard, is he gets a letter in the mail from a little girl, basically saying, my mom loves you, I love you, but my dad doesn't. Now, why would that be really important back then? Women didn't have the right to vote yet.
Right, yeah.
And she's like, my dad thinks you don't look manly enough. And her words were, perhaps if you grew some whiskers, it would make you look more manly, essentially. And Lincoln responds to this little girl I've never worn whiskers in my life, but I will give it a try. And from that day on, he grew his famous beard.
Now, the thing is that since you're bringing up, the fact that he's on monuments and everything, I use this to kind of lead into this guy was going through a lot of stress.
Oh, absolutely.
To get us into the play. But you bringing up the fact that, why is he on Mount Rushmore? This kind of speaks to it. Look what the 5 years did to this guy.
Yeah.
And when you start, digging deeper into that, and you're looking at, what the heck? Why does your face look like a catcher's mitt after 5 years? That kind of gives you an idea of why. So we bring up the whole fact that this guy was under a lot of stress. War's over, so now what is he going to do? He's going to go to the theater and see a comedy. And I'm sure many of you knew, even before you came here, that he was assassinated at a theater, Ford's Theater, during while watching Our American Cousin, right? So during the play, and this may even speak, because I know between your PowerPoint and my PowerPoint and everything that goes along with this thing, there's just so much information. You can
entire books been about this night.
History Channel series.
This the weeks leading up to this.
So we're going to give you probably just a tip of the iceberg here. He was at Ford's Theater when this happened. When he did go, his high-ranking military officials did not want to go, and had they wanted to go, Grant, he would have had this huge, enormous entourage with him. But Grant didn't want to go, and a lot of them didn't want to go because Lincoln's wife was going, and they didn't really like her. So,
and it's a play,
yeah.
It's I love theater, but
because the thing is that it's always brought up. It's well, how does the president get killed in a situation like this? And you got to remember, there's no Secret Service. Now, the reason I bring up your high-ranking military officials didn't go, had they gone, they would want to show that they're in town because they would probably have a military presence as well. like one of these rappers or famous people going from one place.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
have their entourage or posse or whatever. Okay, so
essentially, John Wilkes Booth was a famous actor.
Yep.
So that gives him kind of some.
It's not weird if he's walking around.
Exactly.
The theater.
Like
Yeah.
he's walking around the theater
Yeah.
because he's a famous actor in the South. He was absolutely a Southern sympathizer, sympathized with the Confederacy. And during the play, he is going to creep into the booth where Lincoln is. He's going to put I think it was a single shot Dillinger.
Here's the weapon itself.
Yep. Single shot Dillinger puts it about 6 inches away from the president's head, pulls the trigger, boom. Bullet enters Lincoln's brain, and this gun was not a very powerful gun, so the bullet actually gets lodged in Lincoln's head.
Does not kill him instantly.
Yeah, I forget who this dude was.
I'm trying to remember too.
But he jumps up, runs to the president's aid. Booth has a knife with him, takes a huge gash out of this guy's arm, like almost down to the bone.
Yeah.
Booth is then going to leap out of the presidential booth.
Do I have him leaping? No, I don't have him leaping.
I don't think so. Is going to leap down to the stage, breaks his ankle.
Yes.
Breaks his ankle upon landing on the stage. Holds up the knife, yells "Sic semper tyrannis," which means "thus always to tyrants" or "death to tyrants." Some people interpret that as. Gets on a horse that was waiting for him and takes off.
Now he has to go and see somebody to get his leg treated because he did break his leg or ankle. Now the thing is that he has to go and see a doctor. Now, the doctor's name was Mud. So if you've ever heard that expression, you probably haven't, but now you're going to. If your name is Mud, your last name or your name is affiliated or associated with something that is negative. Now imagine being that doctor and the descendants of that doctor. Your great grandfather, who was a doctor who helped out the assassin of a president. Not just any president, but Lincoln, who, when you look in terms of presidential rankings, he's pretty much at the top 3. Again, this doesn't kill him instantly. Historians look back on this and they go, well, in terms of presidential assassinations, there were 2 that really had modern medicine been around, they wouldn't have died. Lincoln was one, and the other one was James Garfield. And
the Garfield assassination was almost like the doctors wanted him to die.
Oh gosh.
And this is part of like a much larger conspiracy, because also that night the Vice President of the United States, Andrew Johnson, there was going to be an assassination attempt against him, but that guy was that the guy who chickened out?
Well, the funny thing with Andrew Johnson is that alcohol plays a role here twice.
Okay.
He was going to go and assassinate Johnson. He chickens out. He goes and gets drunk. Now, there are historical documents, and even I think the movie that dealt with how they took care of him. When they found out that Lincoln was assassinated, and they're like, okay, we have to go and inform Andrew Johnson. And they were like, oh, by God, because Andrew Johnson did like to drink as well. So the guy who was going to assassinate him went off and got drunk. When they found Andrew Johnson, he had one too many at that point, too.
And then Secretary of State William Seward, who will become back to him because he's really important in westward expansion. I forget what that guy attempted.
Yeah, because he was in bed sick. Yep.
There was like a huge conspiracy. Now, by definition, a conspiracy are more than one person planning to do something. That's just the very definition of a conspiracy. I think it was like 15 people altogether involved in this conspiracy to assassinate all 3 of these men. And it was like, I would love to be able to like crime drama 101. Like something you'd see on like Dateline now.
Oh, absolutely.
All these like crime drama shows.
The plot just thinkins.
Yeah.
And of course, students always ask, well, why these 3?
Mm-hmm.
Well, kill the president. Kill the vice president. Kill the secretary of state. And the thing is that while the rest of the country is going, oh my gosh, these 3 important people died in our government. Now we have to replace them. Now you have chaos. And if there's chaos, the South can rise up again and easily take over because everybody's looking around going, who's in charge?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And then like the whole story behind Booth, Booth was on the run for
about a month or so.
Yeah,
weeks.
On the run, they eventually find him hiding in a warehouse, and Union soldiers surround the warehouse, set the warehouse on fire. One soldier claims he had shot Booth while in the warehouse.
Yeah, like he was walking around, sees a little hole in there, sees Booth hiding and shoots him. And of course, you could probably go and find a source or three that'll say these two are just absolutely talking nonsense about this stuff. Because in terms of investigation, I mean, let's just put it this way. There's a show on not HBO, excuse me, on the History Channel right now called Civil War Gold, where they're looking for gold that had to do with the Civil War, after the Civil War, and then they look at this instance and they're saying that we have found documents that, Andrew Johnson was going to try and be a part of this to assassinate him. So, this, in terms of theories and in terms of documents, there's probably going to be something that you find that might contradict it, and that's fine, but, we're going with most commonly accepted in history.
Commonly accepted is that Booth died in that warehouse. Interestingly, the soldier claimed he had shot him. The body that was recovered from the warehouse didn't have a bullet wound.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you're a soldier, and who wouldn't want to have the credit for shooting Lincoln's assassin?
Now,
the rest of your life is easy.
Now, some people have taken that to mean that it wasn't actually Booth.
Right.
That he may have escaped and lived out the rest of his life somewhere in the Caribbean.
Yep.
Who knows?
But when we get to some of the conspirators, all right, here they are. And these photos are great, by the way, from this era. There was one, I know you're a big Walking Dead fan. Isn't this the guy that looks like the Walking Dead guy, the one who was also in...
Daryl? Boondock Saints?
Yes. Oh, yeah, he was the soldier that allegedly...
Yeah.
I mean, that winds up shooting him. But
Mary Stewart, she's an unfortunate soul.
Now, the thing is, the reason why you have all of these men involved, and then you have Mary Surratt involved, is because she had a tavern. Tavern was also like I guess you could say a smaller hotel where if you were there, you can get a room for the night or two. And by room, we're not talking like a Holiday Inn, Days Inn, or Marriott. We're talking very, very basic.
If you've ever been to Old Bethpage Village, it's like the tavern there.
Yeah.
It's like a little bar downstairs.
And then upstairs, there's a room or two. Now, what happened was that, Mr. Cogan's bringing up this whole conspiracy thing. This took a lot of planning. If you're going to try and kill Lincoln, the Secretary of State, William Seward, and Andrew Johnson, you just don't wake up one day and go, you go there, you go there, you go there. All right, without cell phones and Twitter, by the way. All right, so this took a lot of planning. And where were they doing it? They were doing it at her tavern. So since they were doing all the planning at her tavern /inn, she's going to get roped in with them because it was probably her civic duty and civil responsibility to go, hey, these guys are up to something that's quite fishy. So
this is her right here.
What? Yeah.
Maybe that's her right there.
I think I even have. Whoops! See that? Yeah. Oh, look at that! Just found that before. And this is an actual photo of a hanging because they were all sentenced to death and they were all hung. And this is the first time that a woman's hung. Anything else you want to mention about the assassination? Before you can look forward.
No, I mean that's pretty much it. Well, Lincoln dies early the next morning.
Yep.
The Secretary of War, Edmund Stanton, says now he belongs to the ages. Lincoln was carried across the street from Ford's Theater into a boarding house. He was actually too big for the bed.
Yeah, I think I'm going back to that because I know we said modern medicine would have saved him. Let's talk about why he did die eventually.
Well, I was just getting into Lincoln. Lincoln was our tallest president. He was about 6'4", 6'5", and the bed was too small for him, so they had to lay him almost like cross, fetal position almost, like knees bent.
And there'll be a painting or a drawing that has him diagonal or whatever way. So,
but with modern medicine, the doctor comes in and basically takes a probe and is poking around in his brain to try to find the bullet. Again, had modern medicine been around, he would have been rushed to the hospital, would have been an emergency surgery within minutes of the attempt. And his life more than likely would have been saved. There would have been some brain damage.
Sure.
A lot like Gabby Giffords.
Yes.
The congresswoman who was somebody tried to assassinate her, and she has some physical disabilities now, slowed speech and difficulty.
But even when you talk about that surgery, they would have started off with the very basic, like washing their hands and applying gloves as well,
and not poking around. Hey, where's the bullet?
Woo! Hey, look over here. Hey, get over here. Check this out.
Yeah, I know in my slide I have a piece of the skull.
Yes.
They actually removed a piece of his skull that they found in the brain. But he dies early the next morning.
So now looking forward. Okay. All right, now.
Yeah, don't forget, when we go over presidents and who's the greatest ever, prior to Lincoln, was James Buchanan and Franklin Pierce, who were widely considered to be two of our worst presidents ever. You know, they're always in the bottom 5. Always in the bottom 5. And then it's like, so we're down here, then we get Abraham Lincoln. It's like, yeah, great guy, leads us through the Civil War. And unfortunately for America, his vice president upon his assassination is Andrew Johnson.
Now, usually, people always get this. Who's usually ranked in the top 3? You get it all the time. Washington, Lincoln, and even though a lot of them haven't learned about FDR, they know it.
Yeah.
Right. Or if they don't have FDR, they'll come close.
Right. I mean, if we were ever to add a 5th president to Mount Rushmore, it would probably be FDR.
Sure.
It's Washington, it's Jefferson, it's Lincoln, it's Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes.
Mainly because of his work preserving our
Yep.
our nation's parks and
Absolutely.
whatever. But if we were to add a 5th president, it would be FDR, without a doubt.
Now, so in terms of that, looking forward, based on what we told you with presidential rankings, now, of course, presidential rankings, because you're going to go and Google it and go, okay, well, where does my guy rank? Different historical associations and news agencies, they all look at them kind of different. So that when you go to Google this, when you're done, you little nerd, okay, they're going to be some that disagree.
And I know you're gonna like rush up there, and be like, "Where's Obama ranked? Where's Trump ranked?"
They usually
you can't really rank them yet. They will have a ranking for them, but we won't really know the impact of Obama's presidency, or certainly now Trump's presidency, for another 15, 20, sometimes 50 years down the road. And presidents may constantly move up or down on that ranking based on the way history looks back and analyzes their presidents.
So where we're going with this is that you have Lincoln, who's usually in the top 3. He's going to be followed. The guy who's going to follow him is usually ranked pretty low. And
so bad was Andrew Johnson. He is going to become the first American president ever to be impeached by the House of Representatives. He does not get removed from office. He is saved. That's a great story, how he's saved by one vote. One vote. There's actually, you're going to read the book Profiles in Courage, written by JFK. You ever read it?
No.
Great book. There's a chapter on that. But he will lead us to disaster during Reconstruction.
Absolutely.
We'll call it that.